I
It's,
gave you permission.
oh, look at that. Thank you, Tina.
You're welcome.
All right, we'll get it recorded somewhere.
Yeah, well, I don't know where we'll find it.
Me neither. I'll search the ether after this. Michael, April 18th. Happy birthday in advance to you. And we will get started. And David, thank you for that, for reminding me. Now that I've pressed recording, I'm going to repeat the initial point. When I was in the homes starting out, like we'd actually be in the homes at the kitchen table. So if you think, doing appointments over the phone's nerve-wracking, wait till you're sitting in somebody's home and God knows what you're going to get. But it was actually really fun too. But I get into an appointment and maybe there were certain concepts or products or whatever that I didn't quite know, right? Because we don't know what we don't know. And mistakes are how we learn. But when I'd always get out of the home after a strikeout and I'd call my mentor and I said, yeah, they said this or I did that, right? And he said, Mark, I would much rather perform a biopsy than an autopsy. And that hit me hard because it makes so much sense, right? When you guys have access to your mentor any and every time, like I just want you to really know, understand, and value that when you're in a home, on the phone, on Zoom, what have you, you have the benefit of saying, "Hey guys, I have a pretty good idea of what I'd recommend here, but I always like to make sure I got a second set of eyes on this, just to make sure we're doing the absolute best thing we can for you here. Would you guys mind if I bring in our head field underwriter, David Roberts, or, my associate, Michael Mushlin, he's a pro at this, right? And just edify real quickly. You can call me whatever you want. I like head field underwriter. That's always a good one. Our product expert, that's another one, whatever you want to say. But I really want you guys to lean on that in the beginning. If at the very least you don't do that, prep with your mentor or whoever they've assigned you to prep with before your appointment, so you have a good idea of what to do. Um, and Joe asked yesterday, "Hey, should we postpone the call, or does somebody want to kind of host and take up a topic?" And I got really excited there because this is a topic that is near and dear to me because it's one that I struggled with in the beginning, and it's one that I find we're doing, excuse me, a lot of autopsies on, if you will. Um, and that is the critical period concept. That term for me was a little nebulous, and it's also looks like it's synonymous with a policy from Mutual of Omaha called critical advantage, right? And we talk about critical illness policies and critical advantage covering critical illness. And then they told me about a concept called critical period, and it was easy for me to get that jumbled up. Guys, they have nothing to do with each other, okay? So the reason the concept I'm about to talk about, critical period, is called critical period is because when someone passes away, those that are left behind are in a critical time period of a lot of stress, a lot of moving parts. You're canceling bank accounts, credit cards, you're trying to find this, you're trying to find that. On top of it, you're mourning. You're going through emotional stress and trauma sometimes if you're close enough to that person that doesn't necessarily have you thinking straight or able to, organize your affairs in the way that you might if you were, had your head about you. A lot to deal with practically, emotionally, spiritually, and otherwise. So, about the first 6 months after someone's passing, we call that critical period, a critical time period, right? So this concept you'll often hear called, oh, do critical period. Now, because I got confused, and that's just me, with critical illness and critical advantage policy and things like that, I also call this mortgage payment protection, right? That makes it easy for me to relate to clients in a way, as opposed to calling it critical period. But you can, when your clients also just kind of remind them like, look, when somebody passes, it's not just a funeral you have to worry about, right? It's bank accounts, it's cards, it's, phone calls coming in, you name it. Those that don't know they've passed are still trying to get a hold of them. They're still sending them bills. They're still sending them this and that and the other. And wow, how is that for someone if it's someone that you love and now you're oh, I'm sorry, she passed. He passed 3 days ago, right? You got to deal with all that. Last thing you want to think about is how do I pay for the mortgage, right? How do I pay for the car? How do I pay this school loan bill before they throw more interest on it, right? Good, Daniel. So if I can, Daniel says he never understood that. Me neither. And thank you for saying that, because if I can just impact one person here, right, you'll be helping dozens and dozens and then hundreds of families with this concept. So critical period is you guys are gonna, hopefully on this call and leaders, feel free to chime in if you've got some. I notice if, and I'll talk about this in a minute, but if you go to SoundCloud, for instance, or some of the older trainings that I will point you to, there's like 10 different trainings on critical period, and they're all slightly different. And I know there's a couple that really resonate with me and some that didn't really at all. And the ones that didn't really at all, I have other people saying, "Oh man, that one just hit me deep. Like that was it." So, okay. So you'll definitely want to maybe hear a few different ways. Oh, thank you, Megan. Well, this is one of my favorites because you're gonna find, guys, this is a superpower of yours, critical period concept, mortgage payment concept. Because when it comes to serving those that have asked us to serve them, you're gonna find, and I'm probably being conservative here, but at least 60% of the families you meet with are actually not going to be full mortgage payoff, right? They want it. That's what they signed up for. That's what they think they need. And some of them even say, if you can't pay off the whole thing, I don't want nothing. Well, okay. I don't know where the logic is there, but fair enough. So I'm going to teach you guys a little bit of how to, um, as Casey put it on an old recording, unload the gun before they have a chance to use it on it. And as we get into crazier and crazier times, some of these euphemisms and allegories probably need updated. But because these days someone probably will use a gun on you if you say the wrong thing. But anyway, what was that, Jordan? Vimeo? Is that
That's the critical period video that's in the file vault that is on HQ.
you
It's
are
a
awesome.
Yeah,
Thank
just
you.
literally just the real script and critical period script being read and revised, like so you guys can watch that.
Good. Guys, please, please do watch that. Thank you for sharing that, Jordan. I'm also going to share a couple SoundCloud files that just changed my whole perspective on this. And if you guys take Jordan's video and during Q&A or when someone else is talking, I'll definitely pull some of the critical period playlists that I have. But if you aren't familiar with SoundCloud, I'm just going to talk about that real quick first. SoundCloud is an app where, musicians, artists, and whatnot post sound files, right? Music, songs, sound files. Um, my son actually composes music and puts stuff up there. It's pretty cool. But Symmetry used to use it as a place to put all their meetings. So after all the trainings, they'd put them on SoundCloud. Now you've got HQ, and that's awesome. Just about everything you need is on HQ. But I still find going to SoundCloud has some real gems in it, including Ashley Tarr in the Home. If you haven't heard Ashley Tarr in the Home recording on SoundCloud, talk to your mentor. It is the bomb. It's how I became successful here. I have everything to thank for her, and I've met her like twice in the entire 8 years. So thank God that we've got this archive there on SoundCloud. But in there is one of my favorite critical period recordings from Ben Miller. It's called Ben Miller, Critical Period. I will put it in the chat later, but he taught me how to really set this up. So again, rewind to the basics. When you guys are working your leads, right, and you're serving families, you're going to notice that, in the home, you get somebody, and look, you'll get a feel for how to navigate this, right? You're not going to be perfect at this up front. It's just something that you slowly but surely get a feel for and start to identify right away, like this is probably going to be critical period. And so what I'm going to say isn't exact, right? You can't shove everybody into one box. But for the most part, critical period is for older folks. And I hate saying older because age is relative, right? It's how young you feel, how young you act, and how well you're taking care of yourself. But for the most part, I'm just going on general life expectancy, not looking to offend, but I'd say 60 and above, you're probably starting to think about critical period. I will go through the chat here, by the way, guys, because there's probably some real valuable stuff that we will address and use it for Q&A. If it really can't wait, right? Just please unmute and speak up. This can be just as conversational as anything else. Um, But you're going to notice that they're in their 60s, their 70s, most certainly their 80s, right? Because we can help folks all the way up to age 85 with our carriers, most of them, many of them. And then, of course, not to confuse things, but you can actually write a critical illness policy on someone up to age 89. So if you get that free lead where they're 86, 87, 88, in addition to maybe an FIF reset or finding out if they have kids or grandkids that need help, you can serve them with heart attack, stroke, cancer policies. So just again, the reason I keep repeating stuff like that is I want you guys to understand to separate critical illness. We always talk about critical illness benefits, critical illness policy, way different, completely separate from critical period concept, which again, I call mortgage payment protection. Michael Mushlin, you win the prize. That is my favorite critical period recording. Jordan, thank you. She backed it up to 55 to 85. I agree. 55 is about where it starts to teeter. You can still get a 30-year policy, right? Why do we talk about this? First of all, when you're serving mortgage protection, as much as I love IULs and permanent insurance and cash value and all that great stuff, it may or may not be appropriate. You know, you get someone, I hate term, I'm not doing term. Great, we have instant IULs. But guys, for the most part, they filled out a form not for life insurance for the most part, right? Most of us are working mortgage protection, and their mortgage has a term, right? So it only makes sense that we would pair protection with the term they have on their mortgage, or at least strategize a solution that works within that term, right? So fall in love with term coverage for that reason. A lot of folks we serve already have life insurance, and they simply want a separate policy to ensure that while that mortgage is due, if God forbid they pass or a breadwinner in the family passes, that mortgage is going to be taken care of, right? So you get somebody young and healthy, they got a 30-year mortgage, great, go to LGA, go to MU, go to Americo, write them that 30-year policy, one and done, they've got affordable coverage for the rest of their life, right? Well, then you get and thank you, Jordan, because it's not just age, right? It could be they're young and maybe not so healthy. Maybe, God forbid, they've got some serious diagnoses, some prescription history that maybe isn't going to put them with one of our young and healthy products, right? Maybe you're going to like a UHL Term Deluxe, right? Or even a whole life product that we're looking to serve them with, a final expense product, even though they're maybe not looking for final expense. And we'll talk about that in a sec. So it really is a concept that is adaptable to certain situations, right? And here's an example. So let's say you have someone who's, we're just going to say 70 years old, right? They've got a $300,000 mortgage, right? Now, they say when you pass that insurance exam that you don't remember two words of, right? You know more than 90% of, about life insurance than anybody else in the country, right? So don't assume that they know anything. They might, and that's helpful sometimes, but don't assume they know anything. Assume they know nothing. And our job really is to educate, not to sell insurance, right? Our job is not to sell insurance. Our job is to investigate and educate and then help guide. That's really the nature of our position here. And if you look at it like that from a call of service, right? A work of service and work from the heart, you're going to be really successful because sales is about connection and interpersonal relations. And so forget the sales, forget the commission, forget all that, throw it out the window and just do what's right for the family. And the only way you can do what's right for the family is getting this information. What's your health? Any diagnoses, any DUIs, any bankruptcies, right? All those questions in the script. And then what's the family situation? Do you guys have kids? Oh, do they live in town? Right? We'll go over some of that in a minute. Well, I just packed a lot away in minutes. Will I get to it? We'll see. But we will get to it all. So I hope you guys kind of get the basics, right? There's full mortgage payoff for the young and healthy. That's easy peasy. But now we get into these situations where, again, we've got a 70-year-old, they've got a $300,000 mortgage, right? And they fill out a form, back to my initial point, thinking, oh, great, if I die, my $300,000 is going to get paid off. Well, any of you run a quote on a 70-year-old for $300,000 in coverage? Anybody? Probably more than their mortgage itself. Doesn't make much sense, and they'll probably go click, right? Oh, I knew it. I can't afford it. I told you I couldn't get covered. Well, wait a minute. So if we employ critical period concept or mortgage payment protection, now the opportunities open up. And what critical period is, guys and gals, all of us, it's simply serving families with a policy that denotes a period of time more than it does an amount, right? So it's not how much it is, it's what it does. And you've got this 70-year-old, they've got a $300,000 mortgage, and I know I'm way off with the payment, but let's say it's $2,000 a month. Maybe I'm not. So let's say their mortgage payment's $2,000 a month. This is why it is really important, guys, that you not only know the amount of the mortgage, but you must ask about the monthly payment. What's the monthly payment you're making on that? And then for FIF purposes, are you paying over? You looking to pay that off sooner than later, or are you just making the payment as it comes, right? If they're overpaying, you might want to FIF reset them, but that's a whole nother call. So they've got a $300,000 mortgage. They're 70 years old. Maybe they have a laundry list of meds. I'll just throw that in just in case. But you know that if you run that quote on them, it's not going to fly, right? And that's when people get frustrated. And that's the autopsy part of the calls I get from agents sometimes is like, well, they wanted 300,000 and they wanted to cover the whole thing, and that was that. And it was too much. Well, of course it was. Until you learn this concept. And what this does, guys, is all you're doing is instead of providing full mortgage payoff, you're providing 6 months worth of payments, a year's worth of payments, 2 years worth of payments, right? And giving their beneficiary enough time to deal with everything that's going on in that critical period to maybe, and in many cases, rescue the equity in the home, right? I can't tell you how many times I serve a family, they want full mortgage payoff, and they're not married anymore. Maybe the spouse has passed or they're divorced or whatever. And their kids don't live in the state with them. They have their own homes, they're grown. And so I ask, well, who's the home going to go to? Oh, it'll probably go to the kids. I just need the whole thing paid off for them. Do you? Are the kids going to move into the home when you pass? Right? I'm not being smarmy. I'll really ask like, hey, so Jimmy and Sally, do they live in town with you there? Oh yeah, they do. Or oh no, Jimmy's in Minnesota, Sally's in Florida. Either way. And may I ask, so upon your passing, would one of them or either of them move into the home? Or would they most likely sell the home and get the equity in the home? Oh no, they're going to sell it. Okay, so guys, that should be a light bulb moment. They don't need to pay off the whole mortgage, do they? They're going to sell the home.
Mm-hmm.
They might need it.
I want to step in for just a second here, Mark,
Sure,
because
Jordy.
these questions, guys, if you're thinking like, dang, man, I wish I would have thought of that question when I sat with my last family that was in their mid 70s and was like, yeah, I just want to pay it off. And I was like, man, how do I get around it? But Mark's asking these great questions. How do I know to remember those questions the next time I'm in my appointment? And because here's the thing, guys, you can't have that conversation with numbers on the table. You have this conversation before options are ever shown because he's going to sound like a completely different person to the family if he's already dropped numbers on the table. Just, and I say numbers on the table because Mark and I come back from prehistoric times whenever we were literally at people's
At
tables,
the
whenever
table.
we would show options, right? You know what I mean? So, but my whole point that I want to emphasize here, guys, is you have this conversation before you show options and how to remember what questions to ask. Guys, just acknowledging it here, it is right here in the real script. And this is a section that I've noticed a lot of agents, because they're getting bullied by the client into explaining the options on a full payoff because they're all like adamant or whatever about what to do. You're missing this right here. The quality questions, whether they're a couple or if they are single. Because look at this, guys. These are the exact words that Mark just asked. These are the exact words. So if you're like, man, this is so good. My pen can't write fast enough. Can't record this fast enough. I want to get this embedded in my head. Look no further, guys, than the real script and the quality questions that are before explaining what even the critical period is.
Love that, Jordy. It's always
That-
just right in the script, isn't it?
Mhm.
And we want
100%.
you guys to be able to know why we're asking those questions, right? And why those questions are in there, because it's positioning you to help that client in the way that they deserve. And and again, you've heard it in Role and Purpose. Like I'm just here to establish whether this is a luxury or a need, right? The luxury for most is full mortgage payoff. The need is, hey, everybody needs a little time when somebody passes, and this is going to do that for you. And thank you so much, Jordy, for pulling up the visual, because there it is, guys. It's right there. And you'll notice there's a critical period script in HQ right next to that real script that'll give you a slightly deeper dive so you can kind of, digest and let it percolate. But there's two real main things that you want to do when it comes to critical period. Number one, you're going to get good at identifying. This is the biggest part, really, is identifying as soon as possible when this may be a critical period situation. And then number two, once you've identified it, position the appointment accordingly, right? So in the Ben Miller recording, and this is where I really, these recordings, guys, aren't to replace the script. They're to give you context so that when you're doing the script, you know why you're asking certain things. It makes sense, and you're able to really guide them by using the script and really having done a deep dive of these concepts outside of the script, so that again, oh, this is why I'm asking this, right? So critical period, we'll get back to identifying, but what the main thing that you can do once you've identified that it's a case for critical period is simply explain your job and what you do. And I love it, laid out very simply. Hey, guys, there's three ways that I like to help families, right? Or three ways that we help families. Number one is full mortgage payoff. Now, guys, mind you, I've already identified this as critical period. So I'm with a 70-year-old. There may be an insulin diabetic. Thank God they're a cancer survivor, 2 years cancer free, right? I'm probably not going to get them a term policy, even if they could afford it, right? I'm not going to qualify. So afford and qualify are two of the main things that are going to have you identifying whether or not this is critical period. So remember that. Premium, health, qualification, right? So if it doesn't look like the premium is going to be practical, and it doesn't look like the health is going to be pick of the litter with the carriers and products, then you're going to go critical period. 1 second, Michael, and thank you. I don't want your virtual hand to get tired. Use the other one once in a while. So the question that what I like to do is just take them through the three ways that we help people, because I have identified, oh, this is going to be critical period. And I know this person probably thinks they want full mortgage payoff, right? So here's how you steer that conversation, because guess what? Nobody likes to be told that they can't have something, right? But they'll always be happy to choose something that's more in their favor, right? So how do we put that value without being like, guys, I think this is going to be like, you probably won't qualify, or this is too expensive, or whatever. That's when subconsciously even conflict starts to come into play. But if you just let them know what's available and what people do, well, now they have a choice, and people love to know they're in control and have choices. So the way that you lay it out is this. Hey, just so you know, Ethel, there's three ways that we help folks, right? First way is full mortgage payoff. Now, that's usually the most expensive and the hardest to qualify for. I'd say maybe only about 4 or 5% of the families I meet with actually get full mortgage payoff. That's usually more a luxury than a necessity. Other way that we help folks is sometimes I'll have maybe a married couple or domestic partners, and they're each, they both work. They're contributing to the mortgage, each of them. Let's just say half and half. Well, I like to save my clients money, like enjoy your money while you're alive, right? So I'll put half the mortgage on one and half the mortgage on the other, and then that puzzle is solved, right? Upon one of their passing, they've got that other half replaced, right? And then the third most popular way that we help folks, and this is what most people in your situation do, that's called mortgage payment protection. And this is where we're usually looking at, 6 months to a year's worth of payments, maybe 2 years worth of payments, to make sure whoever's left behind has enough time to deal with everything. As I'm sure you've maybe experienced, and don't say I'm sure, ask, say, have you guys ever, this is a great question, by the way, guys. Have you guys ever experienced a situation in which either somebody passed and life insurance wasn't in the picture and what that looked like, or thank God life insurance was in the picture? Have you guys have any experiences around life insurance and what having it or not having it could impact? And just be quiet for a minute. Let him tell you a story. Oh, my uncle passed, but thank God he had this. Or, oh, my aunt passed, and we're still not talking to our cousins because nobody could come up with $10,000, right? You'd be surprised at what you might hear if you ask, not tell, ask the question. What kind of experience do you guys have with life insurance, like in a real life situation? Somebody passes and either they did or didn't have life insurance. Do you have any experience with that? Okay. But I'm sure you guys have seen that. No, 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 no. Okay. You ever seen GoFundMe's on Facebook when somebody passes and they're looking for 15 grand for a funeral and they've raised like $232? Okay. Well, right. So questions, things like that. And then here's something that I find to be extremely valuable. Before you meet with anybody, but in particular, an older couple or person, or a person that you're going to position for critical period. But this is usually the case for older people. Go to Zillow, look up their address, and find out what the Zillow average sale price would be for their home right now. What is it worth if they sold it? Have that number on the side, and then you ask them. After I go through those three options, I say, incidentally, if you were to sell the house tomorrow, what do you think you could get for it? I see you owe 230. What do you think you get for it? Oh, we just did the bathrooms. Oh, we could probably get about 350 for it. That's fantastic. I actually took the liberty of looking it up on Zillow, and you're right. You could get about 365 in today's market. So you have over $100,000 sitting in this house that you've worked hard for. That's your legacy. That's your benefit right there. But it's trapped in the walls, right? So my job upon your passing is to make sure that at the very least, God forbid you pass away tomorrow, that Mary has enough time to rescue that equity in the home. Because what happens if the mortgage payment isn't made? Does the bank call and say, hey, Mary, we're really sorry to hear about Bill's passing. We're going to give you a couple months to figure things out, right? The bank's they're real friendly over there. They give you free suckers and everything. Are they going to call and do that?
No.
No. You will get your dum-dums though. I love those.
I
Butter.
do too, man.
What's your favorite flavor? Put it in the chat.
My-
What's your favorite flavored dum-dum?
oh, that's so tough.
I know. Not the mystery flavor, though. That's just too mysterious for me. The purple one with the question mark. Ew. All right. So that's are they going to? And they'll say no. They'll laugh, right? But they're also, Mary, are they going to call and say, hey, Mary, we heard about Bill's passing. We need the mortgage paid off tomorrow. Like, we don't trust you. We need the whole thing tomorrow. They're not going to say that either, are they? And she'll laugh and say no. Trust me, they will. I do it all the time. And now you say they just want to make sure they're getting their monthly payment, right? Yeah, that's right. So the way that we help folks is making sure that you've got enough monthly payments in the bank to have enough time to rescue that equity at the very least. Now, if we can get more, we'll get more, but that's my job. Does that make sense? And guys,
Yes.
Chris Cook taught me that, and I know that's kind of basic, but the more times during an appointment you say things like, and by say I mean ask, does that make sense? sound good, fair enough, right? Those are my three favorites. Sound good? Does that make sense? Did I explain that clearly? Fair enough, right? I'm going to ask you a few questions about your health, your prescriptions, just so I can make sure we see what you qualify for. Fair enough, right? Because the more psychologically, the more someone nods and says yes during an appointment, the more they're ready. It literally, you're greasing the wheels for a nods and yeses. So it's important. I promise you guys, this is a psychology thing throughout the appointment. Sound good? Fair enough, right? Michael, I'll pause for a minute because I know you've had your virtual hand up for a while.
Yeah, and it goes back to something that you were saying and something Jordan said. So you said something, Mark, you said, yeah, sounds good, right? And when Jordan was going over that component in our script, in the real script, if Joe Martinez were here, he would say, that's why we go over the role and purpose, right? Because
Yeah.
if Mark was like I'm talking to a 68-year-old woman right after this call to get her, to run an appointment with her. Susan, my role and purpose here is to help you, is to navigate all the different insurance carriers so I can help you get the most amount of coverage at the least amount of cost that you qualify for. And I wanted to bring that up because it connects really well to what Jordan was pointing to us at those questions, right?
Yeah.
And so, you can remind people in the appointment, hey, my role and purpose here is to help you get the most amount of coverage that you qualify for the least amount of cost. So just something I wanted to add back in there.
I love that. Love that, love that, love that. I'm gonna also real quick, since you went into that, I am gonna put my critical period playlist in the chat. But yeah, I'll do that in a second.
No, you're fine. I was gonna, if you wanted to do that, I can edify just parts of the learning process of what you just carried everybody through.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, what I want to edify about what Mark is sharing, guys, is not just the what, but the how, right, guys? Because you can say the exact same phrasing as what Mark is saying, but you could say it without the opportunity for understanding and connection, and you're going to miss people. People are not going to hear you because you're not engaged with them. Y'all, and the reason why we lack engagement with a client is because we are just driving this train without ever stopping and getting those social cues, without ever stopping and asking a question that doesn't just result in a yes or a no. Right. So when he's asking these questions, pay attention to what is he actually saying, right? Why are the questions in the real script formulated the way that they are? When he's taking people through the three different ways to understand how setting up mortgage protection, he's not sitting on each one the equal length of time because we understand that the client is not going to qualify for a full payoff, or it's not going to be a service to the family to show them a $1,700 a month payment for an insurance policy. It's not going to be in their best interest to help them make a decision that actually helps their family if we sit on something for too long. That's why he said, first one, most of my families don't do this because it is the most expensive route to consider and the hardest to qualify for plan. Option two is, it's very popular for our families that have two people in the work field right now, where they're out there and we cover half of the home on each of them, and boom, and now the house is protected. Yes, it is cheaper than option one, but most of my family, 65 or older, or just like you, they look at option three. Pause to make sure that the family has arrived with you here. Now we're going to spend our time describing the critical period, asking quality questions so that they truly understand, because these people are pretty scared with a large mortgage. They're scared about how are my kids going to be able to come up with $250,000 upon my passing? How are they going to do that? Right. And then when you ask those questions, like Mark was walking through and are in the script of like, when that time comes, how much money is the bank really going to be asking your family for to keep the roof over their heads? And they'll be like, well, $250,000. Actually, no. They're just going to want the $1,800 payment. And that's what causes foreclosures, not payoffs, but payments. And
That's
that slowing down, that connecting is what I wanted to emphasize that Mark does so well while he's teaching you guys here is such an important factor of when you're communicating with your families that they understand what are we actually accomplishing.
Thank you. Love, love, love that. The other one I am going to share, guys, that has those three questions, the best I've ever heard them. I'm sorry, not the three questions. That's in the Ben Miller recording, right? I also, if you have not had the pleasure of hearing Ashley Tarr's In the Home, it is where the real script came from. Don't use, as a substitute, but this is going to give you the heart behind the real script. And I love, she's the one that taught me via this recording how to just basically say, hey, Mary, is the bank going to call and say, we're going to give you a few months, Bill passed away, we get it, right? And it adds a tiny bit of humor and also acknowledges that banks are banks. They just want their payment, right? And then of course the next question is, well, are they going to call and want the whole thing, right? So that recording's real important. If you'll go to the chat, guys, Jordan, scroll way up, put the link to the Vimeo role play. Super, super important. I just put, and Michael shared the Ben Miller recording, which is also in the playlist I just shared a few chats ago here. So you'll see that playlist of Critical Period. One may resonate with you more than the other. The Ben Miller one's the one that got me, and where that positioning of those three questions are really going to help. And then that last one is the Ashley Tar, not Star, but I think that was just a typo. The
I
Ashley
like
Tar.
Star. Star looks good on it.
It's pretty, she is a star. So there you have it. Um, so guys, and then identifying it, that's going to take some practice. It's going to, but again, biopsy versus autopsy. When you've got an appointment tonight in an hour tomorrow morning, call your mentor. Share the age of the client. Did you get their age, their date of birth? Did you get their any kind of health conditions, diagnoses? Did you make it that far? Now, granted, sometimes I know you just set the appointment, you don't necessarily get all the info. But the info you want to strive for, of course, is in the script, right? It's in the best script, but you want their age slash date of birth. You want any conditions that they may have been diagnosed with, right? Hospital, overnight stays in the hospital, things like that. And prescription history, not necessarily medications that you've taken, but even if you've just been prescribed them as a just in case the last 2 to 5 years, have that handy. Do you know any offhand? Like if they've been kind enough to give you their conditions, diagnoses, the next question is, are you being prescribed anything for that, right? And very important to find out when were you first and last prescribed that medication? That's a big, big deal. And when were you originally diagnosed with X, right? If you've got the more info you better, right? But the good news is if I see 60 plus, I'm going to go critical period for the most part. And IUL and Express, Instant IUL, that's probably like level 2 conversation here. We won't get into that. You could probably find an affordable permanent policy for them just the same. But you really got to get critical period down because it's going to be 60% or more of your leads, right? It's just the way that it works. And I've seen too many people asking for that autopsy, not understanding that, look, not only is this a concept that's going to serve the families, best, but I can't tell you how many homes Jordan and I went into where they're like, I didn't know you could do that. Like a lot of them truly think it's either all or nothing, right? My mortgage is 200. Why wouldn't my policy be 200? It doesn't make sense to them, right? We're educators. Remember that. We're not salespeople. We're educators. And to educate, you must investigate, right? You've got to understand. So investigate, educate, and I'll think of a rhyme for serving, servicate, and just give them the options. Anybody, I know we got about 15 minutes here. I'd love to do some Q&A because I know you've each and all run into this situation. And I don't want to complicate it by giving you stuff that's outside of the real script. I want you to understand the stuff that I'm giving you that
She
maybe.
gets charged even if you call her question mark?
Hey, Holly.
That's right, Holly.
Oh
Here,
gosh, I'm so sorry.
you're okay. We got
Holly's
you.
showing off. She's just running appointments again. She's a
No, just talk texting, actually.
Oh, good.
Continue on.
Thank you, Holly. John, I see your hand up.
Mark, my question is for somebody who's single and living benefits is more of a bigger issue than even getting rid of the house. How do you position against that? I've got or what where do you end up going with that for
Well, if
someone?
it's truly just living benefits they're seeking, then I'll write them a Mutual of Omaha Critical Advantage policy, which covers critical illness and heart attack, stroke, cancer, and more.
What
That's where that can end up.
you'll tend to find, John, depending on how healthy the client is, that even showing them like a CBO 100 that has living benefits built into it, and it's like a savings account for that, you know what I mean? Also may be a viable option in that kind of moment where you can say, hey, listen, this is all for you. You know what I mean? If you needed this death benefit because of living benefits, we can file a claim against that. But when you outlive this policy, you get your money back. That's
Yeah.
the alternative as well, because critical advantage goes to 100 grand, and some people might need more than just that.
And guys, understand what your commission levels are on different products. Not that your commission should have any bearing on how you serve the family, but I also don't like getting calls from agents saying, "Why is my commission 300 instead of 600?" Well, because this product is
Know the
different.
grid, duh.
Yeah. But I preface that because the instant IULs do pay out lower. No reason not to use them at all. I just want to make the disclaimer. But John, to your point, those IUL products are permanent. They build cash value and they have both critical and chronic illness. And to Jordan's point, if they're of age, young enough and can cash flow it, a return of premium or cash back option is amazing because if you don't use the policy, you get all your money back, right? So that's pretty awesome.
That's very helpful because I've got a case right now like that I'm working on. So thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd say 50 or under, the CBO is an excellent
Perfect.
option.
Yep. Show them how to do it in 20 years as well so that they can pay off their mortgage sooner. They get their money back and then dump it into the home.
And let them know it's not a cost. The great thing about the CBO,
Lord.
is not a cost, as long as they can cash flow the premium, right? They're
Oh,
they're beneficiary.
but I will say it's definitely better than where I was.
Hey, Avery, you are unmuted, my dear. We are happy you are here. If you don't mind muting yourself, thank you so much.
Thank you. The cash back guys, just so you know, and they must understand, yes, it's going to be quite a bit higher than say a regular premium would be, but that's because they're going to get all of it back. So no matter what, your beneficiary is either going to get this death benefit, or better yet, you don't need this policy in 30 years, you never used it. Phew, I made it. They're going to give you all of your money back. So as long as you can cash flow the premium, this is a real popular choice for folks that maybe don't see the value in term insurance or renting insurance. In this case, imagine you rented an apartment for 20 years and the landlord was like, you know what, you're a good tenant. I'm going to give you every dollar that you paid in rent for the last 20 years back in your pocket. And that's how I like to explain term insurance, is kind of relating it to renting insurance. But with ROP, guess what? They're going to give you all of that rent back at the end of that period. Great question, John. Any other questions or examples of appointments where maybe you think, oh, I didn't know about this. I could have used that. Would love to hear some examples. No? Was I that good? Jordan, we were that good. There are no questions.
Have you guys found yourself in an appointment where you feel like you were like, wow, this seems to be going so well, but at the end, they still gave you the think about it. Anybody been in that situation where you're like, man, I could have swore they were on board with me. Next appointment, I want you to pay attention to how much they're agreeing with you versus how much they're telling you that the policy actually means something to them. That's something I think that will be a major indicator of getting away from think about it, especially with critical period, is, one of my favorite things to ask somebody is, again, help me out here because I just want to make sure this is of a value to your family. If the house payments were covered for, let's say, at least 6 months for you, John, what would that do for you, Sally? And let them tell you what the value of critical period would do for them before you show numbers. Because what happens, right, is they'd go, yep, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that sounds good. And then you show options and they give you the think about it, right? Take some time to allow for the client to communicate to you before you show premiums or time periods, right? Take time to let them tell you what they would do with that time.
Jordan, can you say that question one more time? If they
Yeah,
pay it, if they give it, say 6 months, what would that look like for your family, or what did you
yeah,
say
like
after that?
like God forbid, and I would hate for this to ever happen, but let's say something happened tomorrow to John. If you knew you didn't have to make the payments on this house out of your income for 6 months, how would that help you during that time? Like, what could you get done?
Thank you.
Absolutely. And let them tell you what that time means to them. Because I'll tell you, when you get a lot of yeses at the end, like social cues are one thing, right? Where you're educating them on things and you want to make sure they're following along. But to ensure that it's actually sticking with the family as far as it being beneficial and how they can imagine it, playing a factor in their life, we have to ask questions that engage a response from them that's outside of just yes or no. Because you'll get to think about it if you're like, well, they told me it'd be good for them. They told me, yes, it makes sense. Why did they still say think about it? Right? It's because they still don't get it and you haven't given them the opportunity to get it. Right? And that's what I want to emphasize also here with Mark is these quality questions are so important.
And on the flip side, that's amazing, Jordan. On the flip side of Jordan's question, how would this serve you? If you've done your job as an investigator, right, asking good questions, you've gone over their income and their outgoing budget, and they're writing it down as you go through it. As you do that, right, and when you get to the point before showing options, as Jordan said, asking them what kind of value would this bring? On the flip side, you can also ask, or in addition to, hey, guys, and I always say, like, sometimes I hate to be morbid. Part of my job is being the Grim Reaper or the ghost of Christmas future. Like, but let's say, God forbid, John didn't come home yesterday, right? And what would that look like for you, Mary? Emotion, obviously it's going to be tragic, but financially, what would that look like? Like where is the mortgage payment going to be? The next 6 or 7 mortgage payments, and say that, not the next 6 or 7 mortgage payments going to come from, right? And just sit on that and let them think about it. Well, I don't
Yes.
know. Would you be
Let
moving?
them tell you. Let them tell you.
Yes, they must tell you. Don't tell them. Yeah, Xander, I like Ghost of Christmas Future because it keeps it light. I started doing that after I was at the kitchen table and I asked a question about that. And the wife, I had a husband and wife, and the kid was in the living room watching a Disney movie, and you did not tell me we were going to talk about, how dare you cannot ask this in front. I mean, she lost it on me for just bringing up, the fact that he might pass and the fact that the child was in the living room. And that just scared me and also made me realize, like, whoa, this is a serious subject that hits people really hard if you talk about it. And that's our job, to talk about it and ask about it so that they can. I mean, you really are the ghost of Christmas future. Like, it's going to happen eventually, but what happens if it happens at an untimely, point in your journey here, right? What does that look like for you? Do you have anything that acts as life insurance now? IRAs, 401ks, guys, that's why the FIFs are so important, not just so you can get a referral and a commission. It's because do you guys have anything in place that acts as life insurance right now if you were to pass away tomorrow? IRA, 401k, savings account, money in the mattress, right? So really good stuff.
I like asking what the plan is. Like, okay, God forbid. So we gone through everything. Like, what's the plan? God forbid something happened to you next week. Like, what's that going to look like? And then they're like, I don't know. That's why I'm talking to you. And you're like, great.
They're like, please tell me what's going to happen to me by setting me up with a policy that tells me what's going to happen to me.
Yeah.
And let's go with Zayad. I hope I said that right. I am so sorry if I butchered your name. I know you've had a question.
Real quick before Zayad and Jen,
Oh, okay.
much respect. I just want to answer Christina's real quick because you guys are going to get all the time. I have what my job offers me. I have insurance at work. I have work insurance. Guys, listen to that Ashley Tarr recording 100 times. But one of the best ways to eliminate that is just at the beginning say, hey guys, what kind of life insurance do you own now? And I mean insurance that you own, not like insurance that you have from work. Like if you have insurance at work, that's great. It's usually cheap or free. You get all you can, but HR could change their mind at any moment, right? You may not have that next week. Plenty of ways we can deal with that, Christina. And usually it's just mentioning like, hey, a lot of people have insurance at work, but that's not insurance that you own and control. And it doesn't go with you if you separate, positions, and it's going to cost you more 5 years from now than it would today, kind of thing. Zayad and Jen, Zayad?
Yes. Hi, guys. Do you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes,
we got
sir.
Sorry for the noise here, background noise. I'm outside. But I got a list of like about 15, 20 leads. The youngest one was 73 years old, and they're looking for mortgage protection. Awkwardly, I don't know. I mean, that's for me first time seeing something like this. I mean, the least mortgage they have is like $300,000 and up to like $700,000 and $500,000.
That's right.
And then that's mostly California too. So,
Well, that's
I
where
mean,
critical period can come into play big time, Zayad. That's a great question. Bailey Paris had one yesterday. They have like a $1.5 million home, right? But they only owe, 200 some thousand on it. So in that case, you have all that equity to lean on and say, look, if you miss the payments, that $1 million of equity goes to Wells Fargo, not to your beneficiary, right? But to your point, Zayad, maybe it's worth $1 million and they owe $1 million. If they're not healthy or young enough to get an SBLI or an LGA, which will go up to 2 million, right? Then you're going to use critical period, because critical period isn't just for older folks or for folks with a limited budget. It could very well be for that California mortgage. And that's where, the last point that we've hit on that I want to really accent is it's not how much it is, it's what it does, right? So last point about critical period that's so important. And then we have, I'll stay after if you have some questions besides this, but guys, this is so crucial when it comes to critical period. When you present these, and please don't confuse this with being disingenuous, right? If you tell somebody that you're going to give them a $6,000 face value for $285 a month, they're going to hang up on you, right? They're going to click off the Zoom and you'll never hear from them again. So it's very important that when you're discussing critical period or mortgage payment protection, you talk about it in terms of time, right? So for instance, if you've got that $1 million home in California and it's an $8,000 a month mortgage, you're probably going to get them maybe 4 to 6 months worth of payments in the bank if they're older, right? Because our final expense go up to 40, 50,000. And so, or a term if they're younger, doesn't matter. But the point is, as opposed to saying, hey, great, I found one for $6,000 face value for $285 a month. No, that's not going to serve them, because you're not educating them and helping them understand that you're solving a time problem, right? And the way that you want to present it instead is calculating it in terms of time And of course, you're not hiding the face value, but more like this. Hey, so it looks like we could get you 6 months worth of payments in the bank for $200 a month. We could get you 12 months worth of payments, so a full year's worth of mortgage payments in the bank, little more than that, but roughly a year's worth of payments for about $420 a month, right? And now you have correctly presented critical period in the form of time. So what sounds better to Mary? That you're going to be paying $285 a month for an $8,000 policy, or you're going to be paying $285 a month to make sure that you've got 6 months where you do not have to worry about making the mortgage payments because they're going to be right there in the bank for you to make. Does that make
If
sense,
I,
guys?
if I may, Mark here. So basically, it's not specifically for a critical period where the conversation is going. Obviously, most of the older folks, they just like, how much? Right off the bat, like, I don't even know your name yet, like, for God's sake. So,
That's
but
right.
anyway, the conversation continues. Hey, loved ones, all that, you built all your life, all this kind of assets and work hard for it, try to protect it, now got to go away and all this. Yeah. Okay, great. And then, but anyway, regardless of when you do like illustrations or quotes on technically any carrier, it's astronomical payments, like 600 plus. I mean, their
Yes.
mortgages are like $1,300. I mean, I'm having a hard time trying to make that stick together.
Zayad, that's when you really
That's
want to. Oh, go ahead,
yes.
Jordy.
I was gonna say that's the whole point of us bringing up this training today, Zayad, because we are meeting people where they are without getting bullied and pushed into edifying their thoughts about what's this going to be like. Right? And that's why we get in the driver's seat. That's why we use the real script. That's why we go slow. Right? We don't move at the pace that they want us to move at. We move at the pace they need us to move at. And those quality questions are designed to get somebody to think and learn about what's really going to happen if I die, not just what can I get from this dude that I don't even know what his name is. Right?
And
Like that's not the whole point of the call. The point of the call is to serve the family. And you got this, Mark.
no, you're right, Jordy. I love that. And Zayad, that's exactly what this is for. It's not just for the older or the sick, it's for folks that are going to need some breathing room upon somebody's passing. And when it's not practical to cover the whole mortgage. And that's when you still go over those three ways we help people, right? That first way is the most expensive, hardest to qualify for. And probably about only 5% of the families I meet with actually do that. Here's the other thing, guys. Yeah, Cody, thank you. Because here's the other thing. If they have a $1 million home plus, not always, because it's America and we love debt, but when it comes down to it, they're either making overpayments on that mortgage or they have something. This is such an important question to ask in the beginning before you get into things. Hey guys, real quick, what do you have, including other life insurance policies? Most people I meet with already have life insurance. They're looking for mortgage protection as kind of a separate bucket upon somebody's passing. But what do you have in place that would act like life insurance right now?
So
IRA, 401k, saving, right? Because now you may be able to help them with critical period plus a major FIF, reset that's going to serve them in a bigger way.
maybe, if I may, maybe that's gonna be one-on-one with one of the guys commenting here on the chat or yourself. There's a few things, details other than what you explained. Obviously, there's a lot of things happening during the conversation. Mainly like we want to. I got called before, like that's most of what they claim. It's B leads. I got called before. The guy wants to cover me 6 months. One of them says it's only for a certain time. One of them says only for half the mortgage. I want to cover everything, and they basically want everything. I know it's not possible for that age, and it's possible they want to pay for it, but it's not going to happen. So I guess it's going to be a little bit more of a educational 101 on this to be able to do the best. And that's why I joined. Actually, I'm outdoor. I'm sorry for the noises, but I know this is going to be an important meeting. I want to enjoy it.
No, I love that. Definitely counsel with who is your mentor? Who hired you?
Yes.
Who hired you, Zayad?
Oh, I'm Violet. and Arya.
Oh, well, Violet,
Arya Fameta, I think that's her name.
yeah, they are pros, pros, pros. So definitely talk to Violet about this. And guys, I put my cell number in there. If you call me, I may not answer, but if you text me, we can
Violet
all.
actually told me to join today because it's going to be helpful. I'm glad I did.
I'm glad you
Thank
did.
you.
I put my cell in the chat. So you guys, I do ask that you text first because I don't answer numbers I don't recognize, but if you text, we'll figure it out. Megan, to your question and everybody's question, Trisha Tantillo, I love it. Kidding, Trisha Tantillo. I will, I don't know, as soon as Zoom records it, I'll put it up this afternoon for sure. And then it will be, just so you know, guys, I have a Newbauer Agency YouTube channel. Just type in the Newbauer Agency. And on the under playlists, click on playlists, you're going to see a whole playlist called Joe's Production Training. All of these production trainings are cataloged there, right? So, guys, a great question. You don't want to be disingenuous. So when they say, what's that? I think, Megan, you asked, like, hey, let's say I just presented critical period. I said you've got a year's worth of mortgage payments in the bank. Let's go. Let's write this. But the face amount's 7,200, right? Again, I'm not asking you to brush that under the carpet, but you do kind of finesse it in that you say, hey, I've got so we've got a year's worth of payments in the bank. So that's going to come in a lump sum. So the face value is 7,200, but that's going to be a 12 months worth of mortgage payments in the bank so that you can systematically not have to worry about making the mortgage payments, have plenty of time to figure things out over the next year. Okay. And then again, if they ask in the application, well, that's the bulk amount that you would receive upon passing. And that's going to be a little more than 12 months worth of mortgage payments for you guys. So that God forbid, and this is what I always remind them, guys, because I'm not the Grim Reaper. I don't know when it's going to happen. So you say, so guys, this will be in place whether something happens, God forbid tomorrow, right? Or 50 years from now, right? You're covered. So what was your social security number again, please? Right. And then always just pivot to the next relevant question on the application. You respectfully answer, and it's more like sheet music than it is a script. You just pivot, roll right into the next question. Jen, you've had your virtual hand up forever. Tell me, what's up?
Okay. Now this one, I haven't really been focusing on the critical period. And after this training, definitely going to. Okay. So what would be the best option to look at for them, like plan wise? If they're doing like a 6 month or a 12 month, which options do we use?
So you're going to use whatever they will best qualify for that will give them the best rate still. So great question, Jen. Guys, don't overthink it. You're still going to find the best carrier, best product at the best price for that client. And so it really will depend on their health conditions, Jen. If they qualify for, Americo, or they're really healthy, they qualify for Mutual of Omaha's Living Promise, right? Maybe they're not so healthy. Go ahead and use Navigator and get some of those UHL options for more difficult to cover people, and plenty of options in between. But that's where I do ask that you guys definitely use Virtual Mentor, use your upline mentor first and foremost, right? And then I am going to share this. Hope I don't get in trouble because this is not an official Symmetry site, but it is blessed by Symmetry agents. It was put up by a Symmetry agent. If you go to sfgquotes.com, guys, and scroll down, I'm going to show you something that really helps me kind of in my spare time. If you go to that site, and again, it's not a Symmetry site, use your upline first, all the tools that we have here. But this helped me kind of learn like who does what. If you scroll down to this underwriting cheat sheet here, you get a matrix, and I get to see these. If you could see the bottom of my screen, I don't know how to move it better, but I have every medical condition for the most part you can think of. And let's go to a popular one, diabetes. I'll be done in just a few, hon. I'm going to go on a walk with Gula after this. I'm super excited. It's beautiful here in Phoenix. So let's say they have diabetes. You can cross-check it with these carriers, and you'll see if they use insulin, it's going to be a decline. If they were diagnosed under age 35, decline. So look at this. I really get to be an underwriting guru by going through the different carriers and what's available here. But do use the core carriers first, guys. Don't try to go down the rabbit hole here. I'm only showing you this as a tool that you can use to kind of get a good idea of what your folks might qualify for. JT,
What's up, Mark?
how's it going, buddy?
It's good, man. It's good.
Good.
I had a question on just the emotional aspect of if you've found a specific question, really like this idea of the consequence of not acting. In other words, hey, if you don't, like Xander's question was so simple and that was so good. Hey, what's the plan if you don't do this? Like at the end of whatever that looks like for you. But what's the plan if you don't do this? And my question for you is like, has there been a question for you that you've seen that really helps them see like, okay, if I don't act, if I don't actually do this, this is what my future will look like, and it's scary. Like, what's a couple that come to your mind that's like this is a must?
Well, Xander's is great because if they don't have a plan, you do, right?
Yeah.
And to your point, yes, this is a question. This is not a tell. This is a question. So I always like to ask, guys, that we have, I like to acknowledge after we've gone over their finances, I like to say, hey, John, you've got 5,000 a month coming in. Mary, you have 3,000 a month coming in. That's 8,000 total. If your bills are 6,000, so great. You've got $8,000 coming in a month. You've got $6,000 worth of bills. You guys are golden. $2,000 a month to spend on Netflix, dinner, movies, vacation, whatever. If John passes, are you still going to be receiving the 5,000 a month? Is this a pension or just regular income? Like Mary, are you going to be receiving that? No. You've got 6,000 in outgoing, and now John's income, if we cross that out, you got 3,000. What does that look like for you guys if God forbid John doesn't come home tomorrow, or something happens? Like, what do you have in place now that would fill that gap? Would you be moving in with relatives? Would you be maybe getting another job? That's what I like. Ashley also asked, like, if you give them a few hints like that, they start to realize, like, oh, I can't do it on my own, and I don't want to go be a cocktail waitress. I want to still be with my kids. Whatever the case may be, it's questions like that. I love how simplified Xander's question is because, oh, if they don't have a plan, they don't feel embarrassed or without a plan because they know that that's why you called, right?
Right.
So it really kind of be whatever suits your taste, JT, but any form of what does it look like if you don't have this in place and something happens tomorrow?
Yeah.
JT, would you agree? And I mean this in all sincerity, guys, like when I'm talking to you now as the couple. I ask this in all sincerity, but would you agree that we don't know if something's going to happen, in an hour or, 30 years from now?
Mhm.
COVID came and went. We lost a lot of really good, young and healthy people out of nowhere. I know I've had some experiences in my family where it certainly wasn't expected and it happened. That's when you can ask questions. Do you guys have any experiences like that where, maybe someone's passed in the last 5 years or so that maybe you didn't expect to pass? Oh yeah, my brother, it might get real deep for a minute. And then, well, what does it look like for you guys if, God forbid, something were to happen to John tomorrow? Um, Mortgage is due yesterday. Where's it coming from? Stuff like that.
Yeah.
And the more you guys know, I like to gab, but you've got to leave these pauses, right? You've got to leave, you've got to just be quiet. Quiet is where things happen, right? The strongest points in an appointment are the points in which no one is talking. If you ask those questions and just leave it sit, I kind of got chills myself just now saying that, right? Like, it's going to resonate and you need it to marinate with them so that it's not just bop, 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 and it's a sales transaction. This is a real conversation. I hope that helps. It wasn't too vague, JT.
No, not at all. I think listening to this, it's very clear. If you don't create a pain point of if it feels more risky to actually stay the same than it is the change, and you're not making the sale. It's just that simple. And so you have to ask these questions, and so actually getting that to where they open up and see a pain point of the future, what it'll look like if you don't change, then it's just clear, like that's where the sale's made. So I feel like you answered that great.
Thank you. And yeah, to Nicole's point in the chat, that cheat sheet is just a guide. What you see that may be passable, if it's paired with multiple conditions, it may not be approved. So it's just there for your kind of education. Talk to your mentor first and foremost. And JT, that's why at the beginning of every appointment, I like to say something like two things, and that is, what do you guys have in place that would act as life insurance now if something happened to you tomorrow morning? That's just FIF Reset Gold, because that's when you can, and you give them hints like IRA, 401k, savings account, money under the mattress, right? And then the other one is I like to point out. So just so you guys are aware, most people that I work with already have some form of life insurance, but a lot of times it's through work. It's not something they own and control, or they didn't necessarily intend for that life insurance to pay off their biggest liability, which is the home. So a lot of people like to have this kind of as an extra policy that won't interfere with the other life insurance they have in place. All right, guys, listen to those recordings, ask questions, be the squeaky wheel. Your mentor loves it. Bug them, bug them, bug them, right? They love it, love it, love it. 4, 5, 6, 7 times a day. If you're stuck on an island and no one will answer, you have my cell number. You can text me first, please. I won't answer the calls. I'm one of those. You would hate me as a lead. I just will never pick up. But if you text me, I will. So I just thank you guys, and James, thank you, and Joe and Amber for the privilege to be able to host this. I just want to give it up to the Martinez brothers, guys. We wouldn't have this if it wasn't for James and Joe. They do this out of the kindness of their hearts every single week. Nobody tasked them to organize this call. They said, we would like to do this for everybody. And it's just one of the most impactful calls of the week. And it was a true honor and pleasure to get to pour into you guys today. And please, if you got value out of this, shout it out on band, because I love the attention. No, shout it out on band, because you don't know what you don't know, and a lot of new people may not even realize what they missed. But we will be posting this on band later today, and it will be up on the Newbauer Agency YouTube channel. Go ahead, like and subscribe. It's not monetized, so I joke, but definitely go there and bookmark that playlist and maybe put an alert on it, and you can go visit all the amazing content that James, Joe, Amber, and that team has put together for well over a year now. So any last questions, and then I'm out of here on my beautiful walk, but with my beautiful wife.
Mark, I have a question.
Yes, Angela.
You mentioned that this morning on the call that you have a 1:30 coming up in Southern Cal and you put it in band.
Yes.
I went for it, I didn't see it, but
Oh,
that would be my
let's
last
see.
knowledge on band.
Let's see, maybe it didn't post, but I'm gonna go.
I just want to know date and time.
Yeah, I don't even know. Well, I know it's April 12th.
Okay.
And I posted it yesterday, so give me a second. I'll actually pin it to the top so you don't have to do what I'm doing right now.
Perfect.
I
didn't mean to go off topic. I just
Here it is. 23 hours ago. So there's a QR code if you guys want to snap it with your phone. Otherwise, I will, when I get back, I'll pin this to the top. But there's going to be a 10 to 12 dial team. I won't be there. My plane lands at about 9:30. But I will be there in time because I am one of the featured speakers. So I'll be there before 1 and be on that panel. But I want you and your agents to know there's a dial team there with winners from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. that they could partake in as well. And you're looking at, these are 6- and 7-figure earners, people that have influenced and impacted me since the beginning, like Sarah Pappas, Miranda Martin, Ryan Miller, and some of the new hot shots like David Alvarado, Josh Manzano. I mean, just amazing stuff. So there it is, April 12th. That's the QR code in Burbank. That's right. Daniel's going to be there. That's awesome. Kimberly, can't wait to see you guys. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, guys. You have a wonderful day. I'm going to stop recording if there are no other questions. Going once. Okay. Bye, guys.